Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something that has, frankly, completely rewired global finance. We're going to explore the complex and, let's be honest, often misunderstood reality of virtual currency, and specifically, its massive impact on the financial crime landscape. So let's just dive right in. So here's a question for you. When is money not actually money? It sounds like a riddle, right? But this is literally the exact paradox sitting right at the heart of our modern financial system. What we're dealing with is this incredibly convincing illusion of money. These digital assets that you can spend, trade, hoard, yet they completely lack the fundamental legal DNA of traditional cash. In this explainer, we're going to decode exactly how this paradox works.
Which brings us to Section 1, the money that isn't.
Okay, so the precise definition we're working from here is actually pretty fascinating. Virtual currency is a digital medium of exchange that functions like money, but, and this is a huge, massive but, it does not have the legal status of sovereign currency. It's not backed by a central bank, it's not legal tender. Basically, it acts the part beautifully, but legally, it's missing that official sovereign stamp of approval. And that critical gap between functioning like money and actually being legal tender is exactly where all the complexity lives.
Now, this is where the rubber really meets the road for the global economy. According to the U.S. Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, or FinCEN, we have something called convertible virtual currency, or CVC. This is a type of virtual currency that either has an equivalent value as real currency or it acts as a direct substitute for it. So the crucial takeaway here is that CVCs bridge the gap into actual real-world value substitution. You can swap them for dollars, euros, yen, whatever. They have real, liquid purchasing power. That makes them incredibly significant commercially, but as we're about to see, it also makes them highly attractive to bad actors.
And that leads us nicely into Section 2, financial crime and risks.
So virtual currency operates entirely outside traditional payment rails. Think about the traditional financial system for a second. Traditional banks are essentially sending these polite, heavily monitored faxes to each other across borders, right? Well, virtual currency just bypasses those tracks completely. We're talking about a borderless digital environment where value can move peer-to-peer without ever necessarily touching a traditional bank's compliance department.
Because it operates outside those traditional rails, virtual currency creates some really distinct illicit risks. We're looking at money laundering, but on a massive digital scale. We're talking about the evasion of international sanctions, the seamless processing of ransomware proceeds, instant scam payments, and just entirely unregulated cross-border movement of value. The reality is, bad actors don't need a smuggler with a suitcase full of physical cash anymore. They literally just need an internet connection. Now, when you combine these underlying elements, you get what we can accurately call the threat multiplier. That's speed plus digital transferability plus cross-border reach. This is just an absolutely explosive combination for financial crime. I mean, in the time it takes a traditional bank to clear a standard wire transfer across international borders, a bad actor can move millions of dollars in virtual currency across dozens of digital wallets worldwide almost instantly.
So why exactly does virtual currency make illicit activity so hard to detect? Well, it really comes down to four specific vulnerabilities: anonymity-enhancing features, weak intermediary oversight, poor customer identification, and the sheer opacity of specific wallet structures. Put all those together, and it creates an absolute nightmare for everyday compliance officers. Now, while not all virtual currency is totally anonymous, certain assets and wallet structures are specifically designed to obscure who is sending what to whom. And when the intermediaries facilitating these transfers aren't strictly regulated, bad actors just slip right through the cracks undetected.
So how is the world actually responding to all this? That brings us to Section 3, FinCEN versus FATF.
We actually have a pretty critical terminology clash on a global scale. The U.S. regulator, FinCEN, relies on terms like virtual currency and convertible virtual currency. Meanwhile, the international standard setter, FAF, that's the Financial Action Task Force, frames this modern risk landscape using much broader terms: virtual assets and virtual asset service providers, or VSPs. And listen, this isn't just some academic debate over semantics. Global firms are wasting millions of dollars and countless hours trying to reconcile these distinct frameworks. They have to translate between specific U.S. guidelines and broader international standards every single day just to stay compliant.
Just to maintain strict accuracy regarding what we're actually talking about here, FATF explicitly carves out that virtual assets do not include digital representations of fiat currencies. So, for example, a digital dollar officially issued by a central bank, that is not a virtual asset under this specific international framework. It's simply a digital representation of sovereign fiat.
Maintaining this strict boundary is absolutely essential for regulators, so they know exactly what falls under these new frameworks.
The international solution to this whole borderless problem is the FATF mandate. This dictates that virtual asset service providers, the VASPs, which include your crypto exchanges and digital wallet hosts, must be subject to the exact same anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism measures as traditional financial institutions. The regulatory strategy here is pretty straightforward. Force these new digital providers to play by the old, established rules of traditional finance. Basically, if you want to facilitate the movement of digital value, you have to verify identity and report suspicious activity, just like a brick-and-mortar bank.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 4, the compliance reality.
There's a core philosophy that mature compliance professionals use, and it goes like this. Treat virtual currency as a value transfer medium with specific control implications, not just as a technology label. This completely reframes how we need to think about this entire space. You see, it is incredibly easy to get distracted by all this shiny technology. The complex blockchain networks, the cryptography, but a mature compliance professional strips all that technical jargon right away. At its core, virtual currency is simply a way to transfer value from person A to person B, and therefore, it requires specific, rigorous regulatory controls.
To achieve that mature view, professionals use a heavy, really methodical approach. Let's call it the professional interrogation. Number 1, who actually controls the wallet or account? 2, how exactly is the asset acquired and redeemed for real-world value? 3, is a regulated intermediary involved? 4, what proactive screening and monitoring exists? And 5, maybe the most vital question of the whole bunch, does the customer and the transaction actually make sense in context? If an institution cannot answer these fundamental questions, they have a massive financial crime vulnerability on their hands, totally regardless of what the underlying technology is called.
So we're left with this. If digital value can perfectly mimic money while seamlessly escaping sovereign borders, how will global regulation ultimately catch up to secure the financial landscape? The battle between the blinding speed of digital value and the necessarily deliberate reach of international regulation is an ongoing, high-stakes game of cat and mouse. It's commercially significant, it is a major focus for AML controls, and it is fundamentally reshaping global finance as we know it. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.